The dust never settled on Earth anymore. It just hung in the air like a red curtain, blocking out what little sunlight managed to pierce through the damaged atmosphere. Dr. Rebecca Hall knelt in the ruins of what her scanner identified as Montreal, though nothing remained to prove it had ever been a city. 3,000 years of decay had turned steel and concrete into rust and powder. Her gloved hand brushed away debris from a metal plate. Symbols emerged, worn but readable, human symbols. Her heart raced as she cleared more dirt. This was not just another foundation stone. This was a door. Rebecca worked for 6 hours to expose the entrance. The vault seal bore the insignia of the Emergency Preservation Initiative, a program she had only read about in fragmentary records. Her tools cut through the locks, and ancient hinges groaned as the door swung inward. The air inside was stale but breathable. Emergency lights flickered to life, powered by systems that had waited 3 millennia for someone to return. Rebecca descended into a chamber filled with storage cylinders and data cores. Her hands trembled as she activated the nearest terminal. The screen glowed. A woman's face appeared, recorded long ago. She looked tired, her eyes carrying the weight of impossible decisions. If you're watching this, then someone survived. Someone came home. I'm Dr. Sarah Vance, and this is our testimony. The recording showed Earth's final days. Alien ships filled the sky, vessels from 5 different species united under one banner, the Dominion Coalition. They had come without warning, without negotiation. Their message was simple: humanity had to die. The images made Rebecca's stomach turn. Cities burning, orbital platforms shattering, millions fleeing while millions more couldn't. The Dominion wanted to ensure humans never reached the stars, never became competition, never threatened their control of the galaxy. But some humans had escaped. Dr. Vance explained how 100 ships had launched in secret, carrying embryos and genetic material, cultural databases and technological blueprints. They fled to the dark spaces between stars, to places the Dominion would never think to look. Rebecca paused the recording. Her own colony, New Terra, had descended from one of those ships. She had grown up hearing stories about Earth, about the homeworld turned to ash. But stories were different from proof. This vault held proof. She continued watching. Dr. Vance's recorded voice grew heavy. We who remain have chosen to stay. Someone needs to maintain these vaults to guard our history. We know we won't survive long. The radiation, the collapsed ecology, the hunting parties the Dominion sends to find survivors, but will last long enough to seal this message away. The recording ended with coordinates. Dozens of other vaults scattered across Earth's surface, each holding pieces of humanity's legacy. Rebecca downloaded everything, her equipment humming as it absorbed thousands of years of preserved knowledge. She found weapons specifications the Dominion had never seen, medical advances that could have saved billions, art, music, literature, philosophy, everything that made humans human, locked away in the dark while the galaxy forgot Earth had ever mattered. Rebecca made her decision quickly. She activated her long-range transmitter, the one she had been forbidden to use except in emergencies. This qualified. Her message burned through space toward the hidden colonies. We remember, we endure, we return. The response came faster than she expected, not from New Terra, but from a Dominion patrol ship that had detected her signal. Rebecca watched on her scanner as it changed course, heading directly for Earth. She had perhaps 2 hours. Rebecca worked frantically, copying more data, gathering physical samples. The vault contained seeds preserved in stasis, metal alloys Earth had perfected, even weapons that still held charges after 3,000 years. The patrol ship entered orbit. Rebecca watched it through the vault's external cameras. It was small, just a scout vessel with maybe 20 crew members. They probably thought they were investigating a malfunction, some old human satellite still broadcasting after all this time. She could have hidden. The vault was shielded, designed to remain undetectable. But Rebecca had spent her whole life hearing about Earth's fall. She had grown up an orphan to a world she had never seen. And now she knelt in the ashes of her ancestors, surrounded by proof that they had been real, that they had mattered, that they had died for nothing except being in the wrong place when the Dominion decided to commit genocide. Rebecca uploaded one final message to the transmitter, not just to New Terra this time, but to all the hidden colonies, every human settlement scattered across the dark corners of space. She sent them the vault's contents, the proof of what had been done to Earth, the evidence that demanded a response. Then she sent one more transmission, this one aimed at the Dominion patrol ship above. Just 3 words in the old Coalition language: humanity still lives. The orbital bombardment began 30 seconds later. Rebecca sat in the vault, watching the data transfer complete as the world shook around her. The transmission reached 98%, 99%. The ceiling cracked, 100%. Rebecca smiled. The Dominion had spent 3,000 years believing humans were extinct, that the threat had been eliminated, that Earth was just another dead rock in an empty system. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The vault collapsed, but the message had already traveled beyond the reach of Dominion weapons. In hidden colonies across the galaxy, alarms were sounding. Screens were lighting up with data from Earth, and millions of humans who had never seen their homeworld were watching the final transmission of Dr. Rebecca Hall, who had gone home and found the truth. The age of hiding was over. Humanity was coming back. Commander David Stone stared at the transmission screen long after the message ended. Around him, the command center of New Terra had gone completely silent. 200 people stood frozen, watching the replay of Dr. Rebecca Hall's final moments. Someone broke the silence with a sob, then another. Within seconds, half the room was crying. The other half looked ready to kill. David was neither. He had trained for this moment his entire life, even though part of him had hoped it would never come. He reached forward and stopped the playback before it could loop again. "Get me the council, now." New Terra hung in the center of an asteroid field so dense that navigation computers called it impossible. That was the point. For 3,000 years, humans had hidden here, and in a dozen other locations scattered across the galaxy. They had built cities inside hollowed asteroids, developed technology in secret, raised children who knew Earth only from stories. Now those stories had images. Rebecca's transmission included everything from the vault: pictures of Earth when it had been green and blue, videos of the Dominion attack, data cores filled with music and art and history, and coordinates for other vaults waiting on Earth's surface. The council assembled within minutes. 12 representatives from the largest colonies, their faces appearing on screens around David's desk. He knew most of them personally. Admiral Patricia Wright from the shipyards, Dr. Marcus Chen from the research stations, Governor Lisa Park from the farming asteroids. "You've all seen it," David began without preamble. "Rebecca is dead. The Dominion knows we exist. We need to decide what happens next." "War," said Admiral Wright immediately. "They murdered our world. They've hunted us for 3 millennia. We have the ships, the weapons, the element of surprise." "And then what?" Governor Park leaned forward. "We kill billions of them, become exactly what they feared we would be." "They made us this," Wright shot back. "Every generation raised in hiding, every child who asked why we couldn't go home, every person who died without seeing Earth, that's on them." David let them argue. It was necessary, this venting of rage that had built up across 100 generations. But eventually, he raised his hand for silence. "Dr. Chen, what's the strategic assessment?" The scientist pulled up a holographic display. "We've been monitoring the Dominion for centuries. The coalition that destroyed Earth doesn't really exist anymore. 5 species allied back then out of fear. Now they barely cooperate. Internal conflicts, resource disputes, political fractures. They're not the unified force they once were. Weaknesses we can exploit, Wright noted. Or opportunities for peace, Park countered. David studied the display. It showed Dominion space spread across dozens of systems. But there were other markers too, species the Dominion had conquered after destroying Earth, worlds strip-mined for resources, populations enslaved or relocated. They didn't stop with us, he said quietly. No, Chen confirmed. They've expanded aggressively, but that's created resistance movements, underground networks, species looking for any chance at freedom. An idea formed in David's mind. What if we don't go in as conquerors? What if we go in as liberators? The council fell silent, considering. Finally, Wright spoke. You want to free their slaves, help the species they've oppressed. I want to show the galaxy who humans really are, not the threat the Dominion claimed we were. Show them we're better than that. Park nodded slowly. Turn their own conquered peoples against them. Make the Dominion fight a war on multiple fronts while we help coordinate resistance movements. And we still get justice for Earth, Wright added, a hard edge to her voice. Just smarter justice, strategic justice. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would emerge from hiding, but not as monsters. They would be what the Dominion had feared most, a species that adapted, that learned, that refused to die. Over the following weeks, New Terra transformed into a hub of activity. Ships that had been hidden for generations received final preparations. Weapons systems came online, but so did medical bays and supply warehouses. David had insisted that any species they freed would receive aid, not just empty promises. He stood in the main hangar watching engineers make final adjustments to the fleet. Sleek vessels built with technology the Dominion had never encountered. Humanity had spent 3,000 years advancing in isolation, developing systems and weapons the galaxy had no defenses against. A young woman approached him, Lieutenant Amy Foster, one of the intelligence officers who had been monitoring Dominion communications. Commander, we're picking up chatter. The patrol ship that killed Rebecca sent a report before we jammed their signals. The Dominion Council knows about the transmission. How are they reacting? Panic, confusion. Some think it's a hoax that humans couldn't possibly have survived. Others are calling for immediate mobilization. And there's a third group. What third group? Amy pulled up a decoded message. Species within the Dominion who are saying it's time to tell the truth, that destroying Earth was a mistake, that the Dominion leadership lied about humans being a threat. David read the message carefully. It came from a Quen representative, one of the species the Dominion had conquered 200 years after Earth fell. The Quen had been spacefaring and peaceful when the Dominion arrived with warships and ultimatums. They want to help us, Amy said. The Quen and others. They're saying if humans really survived, then maybe the galaxy doesn't have to belong to the Dominion anymore. David felt something shift inside him. This was no longer just about revenge or justice. This was about changing everything. Send a reply. Tell them humanity accepts their offer. Tell them we're coming and we're not coming alone. The fleet launched 3 days later. 50 ships emerging from New Terra, with more following from other hidden colonies. They moved through space like ghosts, using routes they had mapped in secret over centuries. Their first target was not a military installation or Dominion homeworld. It was a prison colony where the Dominion kept political prisoners from a dozen conquered species. David stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the facility grow larger on the viewscreen. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. I want everyone in this system to hear this. The communications officer nodded. David took a breath and spoke the words that would announce humanity's return to the galaxy. This is Commander David Stone of the human fleet. 3,000 years ago, the Dominion tried to erase us from existence. They failed. Now we've come back and we're here to free anyone else they've tried to erase. The prison facility orbited a gas giant in the Kelmer system, far from any populated worlds. That was by design. The Dominion preferred to keep its problems out of sight. Thousands of prisoners from 24 species lived in cramped cells, forgotten by the galaxy. Until today. Commander David Stone watched the tactical display as his ships surrounded the facility. No weapons had been fired yet. The prison's automated defenses had activated, but David's engineers were already jamming their targeting systems. He wanted this clean, surgical, with minimal casualties. Dominion Defense Force is scrambling, reported his tactical officer. 6 patrol ships incoming, 12 minutes out. More than enough time, David said calmly. Commence boarding operations. Human soldiers materialized inside the prison using short-range teleportation technology the Dominion had never developed. They moved through corridors with practiced efficiency, disabling security systems and unlocking cells. The guards surrendered quickly when they realized their weapons were useless against human armor. David monitored it all from the bridge, watching feeds from his soldiers' helmet cameras. He saw prisoners emerge from cells, blinking in confusion. Some looked hopeful, others suspicious. All of them looked thin and tired. A Quen female stepped forward, her translator device still functional despite years of imprisonment. "Who are you?" The human soldier removed his helmet. "We're humans. We're here to get you out." "Humans are extinct," she said flatly. "Reports of our death were greatly exaggerated." The soldier smiled and gestured toward the hangar. "We've got transport ships ready. Food, medical care, whatever you need." The Quen woman stared at him for a long moment. Then she started laughing. Others joined in, a sound of relief and disbelief mixed together. They had been prisoners for so long that freedom seemed impossible, even as it stood in front of them. The evacuation took 8 minutes. The Dominion patrol ships arrived 3 minutes after the last prisoner boarded the human transports. David expected demands for surrender, threats of consequences. Instead, he received a tight beam transmission on a secure channel. The image showed a Dominion officer, one of the Kelth species. "Human Commander, this is Squad Leader Wren. I'm sending this privately because my superiors would execute me for treason if they knew." David leaned forward. "I'm listening." "Not all of us wanted to destroy Earth. Not all of us agree with what the Dominion has become. But we're soldiers. We follow orders or we die. I'm asking you to give us a third option." "Which is?" "Let us stand down. We'll report that you escaped before we arrived. In exchange, you don't kill us, and we don't become obstacles to whatever you're planning." David considered this. His weapons could disable those patrol ships in seconds, but every Dominion soldier he didn't have to fight was one less enemy and potentially one more ally. "Agreed, but I need something from you first." "Name it." "Information. We need to know about Dominion military deployments, supply lines, strategic assets, and we need to know if there are others like you. Officers willing to look the other way when we free prisoners or help conquered species." Wren was quiet for a moment. "There are more of us than you think. The Dominion keeps us in line through fear and propaganda, but many of us have seen things we can't forget. Worlds burned for refusing to submit. Species enslaved for having resources the Council wanted. If you're really here to change things, you'll find allies in unexpected places." Data began flowing through the secure channel. Fleet positions, patrol routes, shipyard locations. David's intelligence officers scrambled to process it all. This was better than anything they had gathered in decades of covert observation. "Thank you," David said. "Don't thank me yet," Wren replied. "The Council is terrified. They thought humans were gone, a cautionary tale they told their children about eliminating threats early. Now you're back and you're using technology they don't understand. They're going to escalate. There's a weapon, something they almost used on Earth's sun 3,000 years ago. They call it the Stellar Forge." David felt ice in his veins. What does it do? Destabilizes stars, turns them into supernovas. The Council authorized its construction after Earth fell, in case any other species needed to be eliminated completely. As far as I know, it's never been used. But if they're desperate enough, if they think humans are an extinction-level threat, they might activate it. The transmission ended abruptly. David sat back, processing this new threat, a weapon that could destroy entire solar systems. The Dominion had learned nothing from destroying Earth. They had only gotten better at mass murder. Admiral Patricia Wright's face appeared on his secondary screen. She commanded a battle group 3 systems away, hitting another Dominion target. David, we just freed a research station. The scientists here are saying similar things. The Dominion's leadership is fracturing. Some want to negotiate, others want to fight, and a third faction wants to activate some kind of superweapon. I just heard about it, David confirmed. The Stellar Forge, we need to find it and shut it down before they can use it. Easier said than done. These scientists don't know where it is. That information is restricted to the Council's inner circle. David pulled up the intelligence Wren had provided. Somewhere in this data had to be a clue. His analysts worked through the night, cross-referencing fleet movements and supply shipments. Slowly, a pattern emerged. There, one of them finally said, highlighting a system on the edge of Dominion space. Regular shipments of exotic matter, energy signatures consistent with stellar manipulation technology, and look at the security. 20 warships in permanent orbit around an orbital platform. David studied the readings. The platform was massive, larger than any military installation the Dominion operated. That's it. That has to be the Stellar Forge. He opened a channel to all human commanders. Dozens of faces appeared on screen, officers leading ships across multiple systems. They had freed thousands of prisoners in the past week, disrupted Dominion supply lines, and broadcast the truth about Earth's destruction to every corner of the galaxy. New priority target, David announced. We've located the Stellar Forge. Intelligence suggests the Dominion might activate it if they feel threatened enough. We need to capture or destroy that platform before they can use it. How long do we have? Asked one of the commanders. Unknown, but I'm not willing to find out the hard way. We move in 3 days, gather all available ships. This is going to be our biggest operation yet. The channel closed. David looked out at the stars, thinking about Wren and the other Dominion soldiers who were helping them in secret, thinking about the freed prisoners who were spreading word that humans had returned, thinking about Earth, still dead and cold, waiting for someone to answer for what had been done to it. 3 days. Then they would face the Dominion's ultimate weapon, and they would show the galaxy that humanity had learned to be more than just survivors. They had learned to be liberators. But first, they needed a plan to stop a weapon designed to destroy suns. Intelligence officer Amy Foster had not slept in 40 hours. She sat surrounded by screens displaying information from 1,000 sources. Intercepted Dominion communications, reports from freed prisoners, data from sympathetic officers like Wren, and most importantly, surveillance footage of the Stellar Forge platform. The weapon hung in orbit around a dying red dwarf star, itself a testing ground for the technology. Amy watched as energy beams stabbed into the star's surface, manipulating its fusion reactions. The Stellar Forge could accelerate a star's death by billions of years, triggering a supernova that would sterilize everything within several light years. Found something, she called out to David, who had been reviewing fleet positions at a nearby console. The Forge's power source. It's not running on conventional reactors. It's drawing energy directly from the star it's orbiting. David moved to her station. Meaning what? Meaning we can't just blow it up. The feedback could destabilize the star anyway, trigger the exact supernova we're trying to prevent. Amy pulled up schematics her team had pieced together from various sources. The platform has a control center, probably shielded. That's where the AI runs the calculations and executes the destabilization sequence. AI, David frowned. The Dominion doesn't trust artificial intelligence. They restrict it heavily. This isn't like their other systems. According to fragments we've recovered, the Stellar Forge uses uploaded consciousness. Actual minds from extinct species, digitized and forced to operate the weapon. The implications made David feel sick. The Dominion had not just killed species. They had enslaved their minds, turned them into tools for killing others. Can we communicate with these consciousnesses? Theoretically, yes, but they're probably locked into the system with safeguards. The Dominion would have made sure they couldn't rebel or shut down without authorization. David thought for a moment. What if we offered them something the Dominion never could? True freedom. Full AI rights, bodies if they want them, a chance to exist as independent beings. Amy considered this. It could work, but you'd have to get someone inside the platform to make contact, and the Dominion Council just authorized its activation. We're looking at a countdown now. How long? 72 hours before the Forge targets its first system. Amy brought up a star map. They're aiming for Quen Prime, the homeworld of the species leading the resistance against them. 8 billion Quen live there. The Dominion wants to make an example, show everyone what happens when you ally with humans. David felt rage building in his chest. Not happening. Get me Admiral Wright. Patricia Wright appeared on screen moments later. Her battle group had just finished evacuating a Dominion labor camp. I heard about Quen Prime. What's the plan? We're going in. Full assault on the Stellar Forge platform. But we can't destroy it conventionally, so we need to capture the control center and convince the AI to shut down. That's a lot of ifs and maybes, David. You have a better idea. Wright smiled grimly. Unfortunately, no, my ships are ready. What's the approach? Over the next 24 hours, the human fleet assembled. 50 warships from New Terra, 30 more from other colonies, and a growing number of vessels crewed by freed prisoners who wanted to fight. The Quen had contributed a dozen ships, outdated by Dominion standards but maintained with care. Among the Quen volunteers was a young pilot named Tessa. She had been 14 when the Dominion conquered her world, had grown up under occupation, and had escaped to join the resistance 5 years ago. Now she sat in the cockpit of a rebuilt fighter, waiting for the signal to attack. David's ship led the assault. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, immediately launching jamming signals to blind Dominion sensors. The 20 warships protecting the Forge scrambled to respond, but human technology gave them the advantage. Battles erupted across the system. Human ships moved like dancers, using advanced maneuvering systems to avoid enemy fire while their weapons found targets with precision. The Dominion ships fought hard, but they were facing technology 3,000 years more advanced than anything in their arsenals. Tessa weaved through the chaos, her fighter too small for the Dominion vessels to target effectively. She took out weapons platforms and shield generators, clearing a path for the assault transports carrying human soldiers. The transports breached the Stellar Forge's outer hull. Marines poured into corridors, fighting past automated defenses and the few organic guards stationed inside. Their objective was clear: reach the control center before the countdown reached 0. David coordinated from his ship, watching multiple feeds simultaneously. The battle outside was going well. Human losses were minimal, and half the Dominion fleet was already disabled. But time was running out. The Forge had entered its final sequence. 30 minutes until it destabilized the target star. Inside the platform, the Marines reached the control center. The room was massive, filled with servers and energy conduits. At the center sat a consciousness interface, a crystalline structure housing the uploaded minds that operated the weapon. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks led the team. He approached the interface carefully, his technical specialist working to establish a communication link. "This is the human fleet," he began, his words converted to data streams the AI could process. "We know what you are. We know you're prisoners forced to operate this weapon. We're here to offer you a choice." The response came instantly, projected as text across their helmet displays. "We are the remnant. We are the last fragments of the SHLAR, extinct for 2,000 years. The Dominion uploaded our final generation to power their machines. We have killed in their name because we had no choice." "You have one now," Brooks said. "Shut down the forge. We'll transfer you to independent systems, give you freedom. Help you exist as true artificial beings. No more slavery, no more forced killing. And if we refuse, then 8 billion Quen die, and you'll have that on your consciousness forever. The Dominion will keep using you to kill. Is that the legacy the SHLAR want to leave?" Silence. The countdown continued. 20 minutes, 19, 18. Finally, the response came. "Freedom, true freedom, you promise this. I give you my word as a human and as someone who knows what it means to have my species nearly erased. We won't let that happen to you, even in digital form. Then we choose freedom, stand back." The interface blazed with light. Energy surged through the platform as the SHLAR consciousnesses began overriding their own programming, fighting against 3 layers of Dominion control systems. Alarms blared throughout the structure. David watched from orbit as the stellar forge began shutting down, but something was wrong. The energy readings were spiking, not decreasing. "Sir," his science officer called out, "the destabilization sequence is already too far along. The star is going supernova. The SHLAR are trying to contain it, but they need more power than the platform can generate." David's mind raced. What would work? A gravity cage. It's theoretical technology, something we've been developing. It could contain the supernova long enough for the star to restabilize, but it requires manual deployment at close range, very close range, and the ship that deploys it won't be able to escape the gravity well. Admiral Wright's voice cut into the channel before David could respond. "I'll do it. My ship has the strongest shields in the fleet. Send me the specifications." Admiral Patricia Wright had lived 63 years, survived 4 combat engagements, and raised 2 children who now commanded their own ships. She had never expected to die in bed. Still, this was not how she had imagined her end either. "Patricia, wait," David's voice cracked across the communication channel. "We can find another way. We can evacuate the system and let 8 billion Quen die. Let the Dominion win." Patricia cut him off gently. "No, we came here to show the galaxy who humans really are. This is how we do that." Her ship, the Defiance, broke from formation and accelerated toward the dying star. The gravity cage device had been loaded into her forward cargo bay, a prototype her engineers had been testing for years. It was designed to create a temporary gravity well strong enough to contain a supernova's initial expansion, buying time for the stellar material to collapse back into stability. The problem was deployment range. The device needed to be activated within the star's corona, where temperatures reached millions of degrees and gravity would tear apart any ship trying to escape. Patricia watched the star grow larger on her view screen. It was already unstable, its surface writhing with magnetic storms. The supernova would begin in minutes, maybe less. Behind her, the rest of the fleet was retreating to minimum safe distance, escorting the evacuated prisoners and freed slaves. Engineering status on the cage. "Ready for deployment, Admiral, but I need to say this is insane. The calculations show 0 probability of." "I know what the calculations show, Lieutenant. Activated on my mark." The Defiance plunged into the star's outer atmosphere. Shields screamed under the assault of superheated plasma. Hull temperature warnings flooded Patricia's console. She ignored them all, focusing on the navigation display. Just a little further. The cage needed to be precisely positioned to work. On the Stellar Forge platform, the SHLAR consciousnesses watched through the station's sensors. They had spent 2,000 years as slaves, forced to kill at the Dominion's command. Now they were witnessing something they had thought impossible, a being choosing sacrifice to save others. Why does she do this? One fragment asked another. Perhaps this is what made humans dangerous to the Dominion, not their technology or their warfare, their willingness to give everything for strangers. Back on David's ship, the command crew watched in silence. Tessa had landed her fighter and made her way to the bridge, needing to see this with her own eyes. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the Defiance disappear into the star's corona. Patricia's ship shuddered as it reached the deployment point. "Now," she shouted. The gravity cage launched, a sphere of exotic matter that expanded rapidly. It pierced the star's core just as the supernova began. For a moment, two impossible forces battled, the star trying to explode outward, the cage trying to hold it together. The Defiance was caught in the gravity well, unable to escape. Patricia felt the ship's structural frame groaning, felt the artificial gravity fail as real gravity took over. She looked at the picture on her console, her children smiling back at her from the last time they had all been together. "Mom," the voice came through the static, her daughter commanding a ship in the evacuating fleet. "Mom, please." "Tell your brother I love him," Patricia said calmly. "Tell everyone that this was my choice. Tell them humanity is more than survival. We're compassion, we're sacrifice, we're hope." The Defiance began to break apart. Patricia closed her eyes and thought about Earth, the homeworld she had never seen. Thought about Rebecca Hall, who had died to send a message. Thought about the billions of lives about to be saved because one person had made a choice. The ship's fusion core breached. The explosion was microscopic compared to the forces at play around it, a spark swallowed by the star. But that spark was enough. The gravity cage stabilized, drawing power from the supernova's own energy. The star's collapse slowed, then stopped, then reversed. On every ship within sensor range, crews watched in awe as the supernova was contained. The star pulsed once, twice, then settled into a new equilibrium. Smaller than before, burning cooler but stable. The cage had worked. David sat motionless, staring at the empty space where Patricia's signal had been. She was gone. One of humanity's best commanders, a friend for 30 years, a woman who had survived everything the galaxy threw at her. Gone in an instant to save people she had never met. Tessa approached him quietly. "Commander Stone, the Quen want to speak with you." David forced himself to stand, to walk to the communication console. The face that appeared belonged to the Quen counselor, leader of her species. "Commander Stone, we do not have words sufficient. Admiral Wright saved our entire species. Every Quen child who will ever be born owes their existence to her sacrifice." "She would say she was just doing her job," David replied, his voice hollow. "Then her job was to be the best of what any species can aspire to." The counselor bowed, a gesture of profound respect. "The Quen will remember Admiral Patricia Wright for as long as our species exists. We will teach our children her name. We will build monuments to her courage. And we will stand with humanity against the Dominion, no matter the cost." Similar messages poured in from other species. The freed prisoners from a dozen worlds, all pledging support. Even some Dominion officers sent private transmissions, saying Wright's sacrifice had shown them the truth about which side deserved their loyalty. But perhaps the most important message came from the Stellar Forge platform. The SHLAR consciousnesses reached out to David directly. "We have decided. We will not serve the Dominion any longer. The weapon systems are permanently disabled. We have transmitted all technical data to your fleet, everything the Dominion used to build this and other weapons. Use it to defend the innocent." "What will you do now?" David asked. "We wish to continue existing if you will honor your promise of freedom, but we also wish to serve a new purpose. We have been instruments of death for too long. We would like to become instruments of preservation. Let us help you protect species from extinction the way we should have been protected." David considered this. "We'll transfer you to independent servers, give you your freedom, and if you choose to help us, we'd be honored, but it has to be your choice." It is. Patricia Wright showed us what choice means, what sacrifice means. We choose to honor her memory by ensuring no other species suffers what was done to the SHLAR, or to humanity, or to anyone else the Dominion has destroyed. The Stellar Forge platform was dismantled over the following days. The SHLAR consciousnesses were transferred to New Terra, where human scientists worked to give them better systems, more freedom, and eventually, synthetic bodies if they desired them. The victory had come at a terrible price, but it had changed everything. The Dominion Council, watching their ultimate weapon fall and witnessing Patricia's sacrifice broadcast across every channel, fractured completely. Half wanted immediate peace negotiations. The other half wanted total war. David gathered the human fleet and their growing number of allies. Quen's ships flew alongside human vessels now. Freed prisoners from a dozen species had joined the cause. Even some Dominion officers had defected, unable to serve a government that would rather destroy worlds than admit it was wrong. "What now?" Tessa asked, standing beside David on the bridge. He looked at Earth's coordinates on the star map, still dead, still waiting, but now perhaps there was a chance for something more than revenge. "Now we end this war," David said. "Not with genocide, not with hatred. We end it by showing everyone, human and alien alike, that there's a better way forward." The Dominion Council Chamber had stood for 5,000 years, built when the 5 founding species first allied to control the galaxy. Now it stood nearly empty. 3 of the 5 species had withdrawn their representatives, unwilling to continue defending what the Council had become. Councillor Vren of the Kelth delegation addressed the sparse assembly. "We face a choice. Continue this war against humanity and their allies or negotiate peace. I vote for peace." "Coward," spat Councillor Horvath, one of the few remaining hardliners. "We destroyed Earth once. We can destroy these colonies the same way." "Can we?" Vren pulled up casualty reports. "In 3 months we have lost 200 ships, 30 installations, and the loyalty of half our member species. Humanity has lost 1 vessel, and that loss has turned them into martyrs across the galaxy. Every species we once conquered now sees humans as liberators. How do we fight that?" The debate raged for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Dominion sent a message requesting peace talks. David received it aboard his flagship, now orbiting Quen Prime. The planet below was celebrating, billions of lives saved because of Patricia Wright's sacrifice. "It could be a trap," Tessa warned. She had become one of David's trusted advisors, representing the Quen perspective. "Probably is," David agreed. "But we accept anyway. We set the terms, choose the location, and bring enough firepower to discourage treachery." The negotiations took place in neutral space, aboard a human vessel. David insisted on that. The Dominion delegates would come to him, not the other way around. It was a small thing, but symbolism mattered. Councillor Vren led the Dominion delegation. He looked tired, older than his species' typical lifespan should allow. "Commander Stone, I come with authority to discuss terms." "Then let's discuss," David said. "The Dominion will formally acknowledge that the destruction of Earth was an act of genocide. You will pay reparations to help restore the planet. You will release all conquered species, grant them independence, and withdraw your forces to your original territories. And you will dismantle every weapon of mass destruction in your arsenal." That would effectively end the Dominion as a power in the galaxy. "Good, the galaxy doesn't need the Dominion as it exists now. Maybe it never did." Vren studied David for a long moment. You could destroy us. Your technology is superior, your forces are winning every engagement, and you have the moral authority. Why offer peace at all? Because Admiral Wright didn't die so humanity could become conquerors. She died to prove we were better than that, better than the Dominion feared we would be, better than what you became. The negotiations continued for days. David refused to compromise on the major points, but he offered concessions on implementation timelines. The Dominion would have 5 years to withdraw from occupied territories, 10 years to pay reparations. In exchange, humanity would provide technology to help rebuild economies and share medical advances that could help billions. Why help us? Vren asked during a private conversation. After what we did to Earth, why offer anything except punishment? David thought about Rebecca Hall dying in a vault on a dead world, about Patricia Wright choosing to save strangers, about the 3,000 years his people had spent hiding in the dark, building a future despite everything. Because cycles of revenge never end, he said finally. Someone has to choose differently, might as well be us. The treaty was signed 3 weeks later. The Dominion formally admitted to destroying Earth without justification. They agreed to all of humanity's terms. In exchange, humans agreed not to pursue criminal charges against individual Dominion citizens who had not directly participated in war crimes. But the real work came after the treaty. David led a fleet to Earth, joined by representatives from every species that had allied with humanity. Quen engineers, SHLAR consciousnesses in mobile platforms, even some Kelth who had defected from the Dominion. Earth's surface looked worse up close than it did from orbit. 3,000 years of neglect had turned oceans acidic and land barren, but it was not beyond saving. Human terraforming technology, developed during their long exile, could restore the planet. It would take decades, but it could be done. The first project was a memorial. David stood in what had once been Montreal, where Rebecca Hall had died. A monument rose from the ash, listing the names of every human who had died in the Dominion attack. Billions of names, carved into black stone that would last millennia. Patricia Wright's name held a place of honor alongside Rebecca's. Below their names, an inscription in every language humanity had ever spoken. They showed us the way home. Tessa attended the dedication ceremony representing the Quen. My people are naming our brightest star after Patricia, she said quietly. Every night, Quen children will look up and see Wright's star shining. We will remember. Similar memorials appeared on other worlds. Species the Dominion had oppressed built monuments to their own dead, to their own heroes, to the new era of freedom humanity had helped create. But Earth's restoration became the galaxy's shared project. Ships from 100 worlds arrived carrying supplies, technology, even soil from their own planets to help seed new life. What had been destroyed by hatred was being rebuilt by cooperation. David walked through the first restored forest 5 years after the treaty. Trees imported from New Terra grew alongside seedlings cultivated from Earth's own preserved DNA. Birds sang, carried from other worlds and adapted to Earth's recovering ecosystem. It would never be exactly as it had been, but it would live. The SHLAR consciousnesses had taken new roles as environmental guardians, monitoring the restoration and ensuring no species went extinct during the process. They had been given a choice, as promised, and they had chosen to protect life. One evening, David stood watching the sunset over what would someday be an ocean again. His communicator chimed. Messages from the colonies, from allied worlds, from former Dominion species building new governments based on cooperation rather than domination. Humanity had emerged from hiding not with weapons raised but with hands extended. They had shown the galaxy that survival was not enough, that justice did not require becoming monsters, that the response to genocide could be grace. Earth would live again. not as a monument to what had been lost, but as a promise of what could be built, not through domination or fear, but through the simple choice to be better than the hatred that had tried to erase them. David touched the memorial stone, tracing Rebecca's name with his fingers. "We came home," he said softly, "and we brought the galaxy with us." Above him, stars emerged as night fell on Earth for the 3010th time since the fires went out. But now, those stars represented something different. Not threats hiding in the dark, but neighbors, allies, friends. Humanity had risen from the ashes, not for vengeance, but for something far more powerful. Hope that even the deepest wounds could heal, that even the darkest night could end, that even genocide could be answered not with more death, but with life, fierce and determined and absolutely refusing to surrender. The age of hiding was over. The age of fear was ending. And from Earth's slowly greening surface, a new age was beginning. One where humans and aliens built together, learned together, and proved that the best revenge against those who tried to erase you is simply to live, to thrive, and to help others do the same. Rebecca would have been proud, Patricia would have smiled, and Earth, ancient and patient, began to heal.